The United States military action over the weekend within the borders of Venezuela is still obviously fresh on people's minds. U.S. soldiers captured then President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, and relocated him to the United States on Saturday. He attended court in New York. And for more on Ottawa's response to the United States military action in Venezuela, we are joined by Hedy Fry. She's a Liberal member of Parliament for Vancouver Centre. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Stephen.
In a statement posted to social media, Prime Minister Carney said that Canada has not recognized, and this is a quote, the illegitimate regime of Maduro since it stole the 2018 election. Now, he also wrote that Canada has long supported a peaceful, negotiated, and Venezuelan-led transition process that respects the democratic will of the Venezuelan people, saying that Canada is calling on all parties to respect international law. So what do you make of that language coming from the Prime Minister?
I think the Prime Minister is being cautious. I think it is very clear that we felt that, and we have felt since 2018, that the Maduro regime was an illegitimate one. But we also feel that we need to look at what's going on in Ukraine. We need to recognize that international law is international law. There can be no one who is allowed to break it. And I think while he's being cautious about fingering anybody for doing it, he's really saying that basically we want to stress that we've got to think about international law. And as you well know, the United Nations Charter says that no member state can use force or threat or intimidation against another United Nations state. And this is not what happened. We saw that this international law was broken. And I think it's something that we really need to speak very clearly about. The Prime Minister was cautious because we are very well aware that we are next door to the United States. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that we are one of the Americas. And if the United States, as Mr. Trump is stating, sounds like he wants to take over all of the Americas, we need to be very cautious about how we tread. We need to walk softly and carry a big stick, as the old saying goes.
Carney did not say specifically that international law had been broken, but would you like to hear him say that plainly?
It would be nice to say it plainly, but I can understand how diplomatically we need to be very cautious. I mean, it's not the first time that we have come up against the fact that Mr. Trump wants to make us the 51st state, nor that he wants Greenland, nor that he is acquisition bound to get everything in the Americas to become American controlled. And I think we have to be careful about that. We have to talk, as Mr. Carney said. We are careful because we're talking with our partners, not only our partners in Europe and our partners in the G7, but we're also talking with people in the OAS that are our partners, as Mexico. There are a lot of other countries there. We need to be very careful that we assess the situation before we come out clearly. But he did say, and there was no equivocation about that, he did say that everyone needs to recognize and actually observe international law. Canada has been very clear on that. Our support for Ukraine is based on that.
The U.S. President Donald Trump has made statements this week. You mentioned Mexico. He's warned Mexico to, and again, these are quotes, get their act together. He has said that Cuba is, quote, in his words, ready to fall. How do those threats to, we've heard him talk about Greenland as well, how do those threats to other countries change the way that Canada approaches negotiations with the United States?
Well, this is exactly what Canada is trying to do. To be able to say, we believe you've got to actually observe international law. We have to do that. There is no difference between who breaks the law or who doesn't break the law. We must observe the law. I think Carney was pretty clear on that, so was Anand. But I think that the bottom line is you made the exact point as to how we approach this issue is going to have to be very careful for us as Canadians, for us as a next-door neighbor, the northern neighbor to the United States, when it's been threatening Mexico and it's saying things about us in Greenland. This is a very different world. This is not the same world where you can just walk in and make statements that are bold and brassy. We have to be sometimes careful about how we tread. And I think Canada is trying to do that while at the same time, as I said, making the point that international law cannot be broken. And I mean, our very presence in Ukraine states that we are well aware, and that most of the world is well aware, especially the G7 and Europe, and that international law cannot be broken. So I think we have to be very careful how we respond. It's not that we responded in any other way that said this was the right thing to do in the way it was done. What we're basically saying is that we understand who Maduro was. The Venezuelan people do not want it. But if anybody's going to decide on regime change, if anybody's going to decide what happens next, it's going to have to be the people of Venezuela.
But it wasn't.
I have a lot of Venezuelans in my riding.
But it wasn't. I mean, you say that, we need, UN permission. The United States needs congressional approval. The people of Venezuela need it to want it to happen. None of that actually happened. It was just Donald Trump.
Well, I think that's why we made that statement that all parties must observe international law. And I think America being one of the parties, it means America must therefore observe international law.
But what good is that? What good is that statement?
That statement says that, as Kanye has always said, we cannot control what other people do. We have to be very careful how we control what we do and what we say, and how we protect Canadians economically, politically, and in every other way possible. This is not a time for people to make bold and brassy statements. We have to be careful how we tread. And as the statement said, we are talking to our partners, our allies, both in the region and in Europe and everywhere else. This is discussion time. This is not to just throw caution to the wind and run out there and say what you need to say, except to say very clearly there's a principle of international law that parties must not break. And I think that was clear.
Hedy, we are going to have to leave it there today. Thank you so much for the time, as always. We appreciate it.
Not at all, Stephen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Happy New Year.
And to you. That's Hedy Fry, longtime Liberal MP for Vancouver Centre.